Welcome everyone. It is Monday, August the 19th, 2019. It is currently 4:31 p.m. Central Time. This is a live broadcast for the VBC 66 app. Obviously, this live broadcast is being recorded and it will be posted all over the internet. So, for those who will hear a recording of this live broadcast, if you would like to be able to listen to these live broadcasts when they're actually live, you can do so by getting the VBC 66 app, which is absolutely free. Go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and do a search for VBC, which stands for Victory Baptist Church, the number 66, VBC 66, put it all together. Do a search, get the app, use the app, share the app, love the app, talk about the app. Make the app a daily thing that you open on your mobile device. Use the app. That's what we want. Also, you can get the Spreaker app. Do a search for, once you get the Spreaker app on your mobile device, again, Apple or Android, you do a search, I believe, for VBC, and you can find us. If you cannot find us on the Spreaker app, simply email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I will be more than happy to send you a link to help you find us on Spreaker, to help you find us on the VBC 66 app, or any other. There's so many other different ways to listen to us. If you want to listen, the options are easily available to you, so make use of them. All right? A number of things going on today we could talk about. I posted a number of things on the VBC 66 app this morning. I haven't done any posting later in the afternoon. I may post some more sermons. We need to post a few sermons on Luke chapter 12 since we've been working on that now for a little while and discussing it. And then last night at Victory Baptist Church, we once again turned our attention to Luke chapter 12 with a message, I think we called it Fire, Baptism, and Division, kind of a work through a part of Luke chapter 12. I think it was an interesting study. Again, we did it in a very different way than most churches do things, but well, that's kind of on purpose. All right, so let's get to it. All right, let's get to this. I was reading the USA Today newspaper, and I saw this headline: churches could win back teens like me if they were more welcoming and less judgmental. Let me read that headline again. Churches could win back teens like me if they were more welcoming and less judgmental. So here we have an article in the USA Today written by a teenager, obviously. All right, listen to the headline. Churches could win back teens like me if they were more welcoming and less judgmental. So we have an article written by a teenager. And this teenager wants to tell churches the secret to winning back teenagers. Now, to win back, I mean, these were teenagers who left the church. And now this teenager wants to say, hey, here's how you can win them back. Here's how you can get them back. You just have to do something. All right? Or you have to stop doing something. Now, before we get into this article, I want to make a couple of points. Number one, I think we should, as Christians, as pastors, as church leaders, be willing to listen to what teenagers have to say. All right? We want to hear their concerns. We want to hear their opinion. We want to treat them as young adults and let their voice be heard. I have no problem with that. So I don't want to sound like I'm being dismissive to this, but it is interesting that we're going to get the advice of a teenager and what the church should do in order to win teenagers back. All right? I just want you to keep that in mind, where this advice is coming from, because in my opinion, churches have kind of been listening to the advice of teenagers for way too long. They hired youth directors who tried to look cool and sound cool and be hip and try to relate to the teenagers and speak their language and dress like they do and be funny. And then they created youth programs that were supposed to be hip and supposed to be cool and supposed to be fun, all trying to appeal to the teenagers. The entire Christian, world, young people like this kind of music. Oh, let's find a couple of Christians who sing that kind of music. It's always been an attempt to appeal to the teenagers on their level, on that the teenagers supposedly are the ones to define what they like, and that the church runs around doing everything it can to say, hey, see, this is what you like. Won't you like this? And I think that there's been too much of an attempt by the church to try to accommodate what the teenager wants. Now, I'm going to make what will be a controversial statement, and I know this goes against modern church mentality and modern church philosophy, but I'm going to say it. The church, at least on one level, and hear me out, I know this is going to sound offensive, the church shouldn't really care what anyone wants. The church's mandate is not derived from the likes, dislikes, and the desires of people. The church's mandate is supposed to be derived from Scripture. The church's job is there to equip saints, to proclaim the word in season and out of season. That means when people don't want to hear it. It is to teach sound doctrine. It is to teach theology. The church's mandate cannot be determined by the wants and the desires of people. And for way too long, the church has been running around going, okay, let me knock on your door. Oh, do you go to church? Oh, no, you don't go to church anymore? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Could you tell me why you stopped going to church? Okay, let us write this down. Now, you just stay tuned. We're going to run back and we're going to build a church that will be like what we'll accommodate what you want. I mean, you stopped going to church because you didn't like this and you didn't like this. We'll give you what you want. Oh, you didn't like the boring hymns? We'll give you contemporary music. Oh, you didn't like boring, judgmental sermons? We'll take away the quote unquote judgmental part. We'll get rid of that whole eternal punishment thing. We'll throw that out and we'll make it more engaging. We'll make it more, positive and uplifting. And the church has bent over backwards trying to give everyone what they want. And guess what? It hasn't worked. Okay? It hasn't worked. All it really does is this is what it does. The people who left the church, right, and they give you all their reasons for leaving, and you bend over backward to accommodate them, all you really do is create a church that no longer becomes a church. It becomes a social club for people who don't really want the God of the Bible. They don't really want the truth of the Bible. They just want a little spirituality thrown in through the traditional concept of a church, and that's all they want. They don't really want the God of the Bible. They don't want the Bible. They don't want doctrine. They don't want theology. They don't want any of that, but they still want church. They still want something that feels like it, and that's all you do. You're accommodating them. Many of the people who left, who tell you they left because of this, and this, they're not coming back no matter what you would give them, no matter what you gave them. It's like whenever you try to accommodate what people want, the church stops being what it was designed to be. It's the bride of Christ. It's a place to equip saints. It's a place to teach truth. It's not a place to run around and go, okay, all right, we have a new generation coming up. This generation wants something different than the previous generation. So the church needs to change to accommodate this generation. And the next generation will have to accommodate that generation. No, maybe the church, its mission, its mandate, its way it should function, should have been determined by God in the Scriptures. So already this article is starting off from the basis of, here's a teenager saying, hey, churches, you want to win us back? Here's what we want. That's already, the article's already starting from the wrong place. A church shouldn't be like, okay, tell us what you want and we'll give it to you. No. This is what the teenager needs to hear. The church is not yours. The church belongs to Christ. We please Christ. We don't please you. If you are pleased by the things that please Christ, then hopefully you will be pleased by what we do. But if you're not pleased by what we do that we think pleases Christ, well, then you're going to be unpleased and unhappy, and we're not going to change for you. That has to be the starting point. But there's so much of this attitude, and I've seen it as a pastor. Everyone, when someone doesn't like something in the church, there's this narcissism, even amongst church members. I don't like the preaching. I don't like this. I don't like that. I'm going to go and complain to the pastor because I want the pastor to give me what I want. And I always ask people, when I've had church members do this, I always ask them, so if I change this for you, do you care how it impacts anyone else around you? Like if I make you happy, but I don't make the person in the pew in front of you happy, who am I supposed to be making happy? Maybe we should all not worry about what we want and just worry that the church is trying its best to accommodate what the Bible says the church is to be. Now, Christians always try to make it sound like that what they want is the spiritual thing, obviously. Sometimes it's nothing more than selfishness and pride and narcissism where they think they're the center of the universe, and that's not the case. So this article is already starting off with a wrong philosophy that drives me crazy, that is just too present. I think the church has been accommodating people for way too long, in my opinion. But let's see what they have to say. Again, here is the article. Churches could win back teens like me if they were more welcoming and less judgmental. When I entered the musty church hall for Easter Mass and dipped my finger in holy water, I noticed an approaching woman boasting a self-important demeanor. She promptly came up to my mom and started to shame her for wearing pants, gesturing aggressively to her own ankle-length skirt and her Soviet-era headscarf. "This is God's house," she said, as though it were an engrossing new revelation. I suddenly understood why so many of my friends were making promises to leave their respective denominations, like I did that day at church. They felt alienated from attending a service that is supposed to instill hope. All right, now let's stop right here. This is the opening paragraph to her argument. I think it's a female who is writing this article. I think we made that clear in that paragraph. All right. So the author of this article, again, a teenager, she had a very negative experience. Sounds like that she's obviously a Catholic. She walks into a Catholic church for Easter Mass. And then this older woman comes up there and begins to gripe because of the way I think her mom is dressed. All right. Now let's just stop right here. Now, this kind of nonsense happens in churches all the time, where you have some person who thinks that they are the wardrobe police, the behavior police, the everything police, and they're going to jump on anyone who comes into the church who doesn't conform to their standards. That's where pastors have to get the people in line and say, well, hey, you know what? If it's a church member and they're doing something that doesn't meet, quote unquote, the standard that the church has established, then let me talk to that person in private in a way. Let me work that out. I don't need people running around pointing their little, judgmental finger in everyone's faces saying, you must do this, okay? We don't need that. Now, that kind of behavior happens, and it should not happen. But please note, she is determining, and I want you to understand this. So she said on that day, she determined that she's going to leave her denomination because of that event. Well, that wasn't a church-sponsored confrontation. This was a woman on her own who saw the way someone was dressed and said, this is God's house, that's inappropriate. You shouldn't dress that way. You should dress like me. All right? Now, there's people who do that. But you've got to draw a distinction between someone just doing their own thing in a church and not reflecting on the church itself. I have no idea if it's a Catholic church. I have no idea if I doubt the priest would have approved of that. I doubt the bishop of that parish would have approved of that. But she's drawing a correlation here. So what she's saying is, hey, basically what she's saying, this woman acted this way, and this is the way churches act. And because churches act this way, this is why my generation is leaving the church. But she also makes a very intriguing statement at the end. Now, I suddenly understood